Now it's time for Toker Talk Radio, the voice of the marijuana nation.
What are you people? On dope?
Where you can toke.
I inhale frequently.
Or you can talk.
I experimented with marijuana and didn't inhale.
Or you can toke and talk.
10 federal criminal penalties for possession of up to 1 ounce of marijuana.
While we talk about toke on Toker Talk Radio.
So, by the way, when it comes to pot, if you're 40 years old, you live in a log cabin in Oregon, you got 12 giant pot plants in your backyard, have a ball.
Live from beautiful Portland, Oregon at Rolla J Studios.
Hey, this is great. Just not cannabis.
Plus your calls live at 971-533-7111.
They're walking on their pants with their cap on backwards, listening to Enema Man and Snoopy Poop Dog.
What's to keep somebody from getting all potted up on weed and then getting behind the wheel? Gateway theory doesn't work. It's a reality.
Holland, is it real? Don't tease me.
We're locking up people that take a couple of puffs of marijuana, and the next thing you know, they got 10 years.
And now, here's your host, the guru of ganja graphics, the sultan of sativa statistics, and the worst nightmare of a reefer mad prohibitionist. A polite, perspicacious, productive pothead with a propensity for PowerPoint. Radical Russ Belville.
Ms. Pac-Man. That's Ms. Pac-Man. I know that one.
I didn't spend a lot of time on Pac-Man when I was younger. I was like in asteroids and
Yeah. Galaga.
Galaga was okay, but Wizards and Warriors.
There we go.
Yeah. Big old 4-person arcade,
Loving it.
A Golden Axe.
There you go.
Fuck yeah, Golden Axe rocks.
Welcome, everybody, to Toker Talk Radio. I'm Radical Russ Belville. We got Brian the Red hanging out here in the studio as well.
Howdy, hey.
We are live from Portland, Oregon, and coming up after our break, we're going to go to my presentation at the Oregon Medical Marijuana Business Conference, taking a look at the state of Oregon's new dispensary law and how that's going to affect the entrepreneurs who are attempting to set up shop here in the Beaver State.
Or as I refer to them as ganjapreneurs.
Ganjapreneurs, that's right. But before we go to that, we've got a few things we got to take care of. First is our Fan Friday trivia contest.
Which we've been making a habit of going over the mark. So we think we're going to change the day.
Maybe we'll change it to Wednesdays or something. But for now, Fan Friday, we're going to give away this High Times magazine. This is High Times, August, September 1975, first anniversary issue. Very cool stuff. Menthol rolling paper ad on the back here. We've got a caller, though. Let's see what the caller has to say. 816 area code. You're on the air. Oops, got to turn you on.
Hello.
Hey, what's up?
It's a great magazine. Wish I could win that.
Yeah.
I'll try to.
We've got another. We're going to do another contest.
Time.
We're going to do another contest next. So after we give this one away, listen close, and you can win the next one.
Yeah, that's a cool one.
Right on, man.
Say, I just have your thoughts. Get you guys' thoughts. So, if Attorney General Eric Holder would be challenged in court by, I don't know what kind of money there is out there with NORML and other groups, but how could he be challenged now that there is actual evidence of medicinal uses to get it off Schedule 1? For me, with a felony pending, I would really like to see that.
That'd be nice, wouldn't it? Well, the thing is, it's been tried.
Is that a reality?
Well, it has to happen within the federal level. I don't think any outside influence from our level would get it actually done.
Yeah.
Because there's been medical efficacy for the THC and the plant since the 70s. And It's been published and distributed. It's just, they're I say that they're doing the 2-year-old plug their ears and la 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 kind of. They don't want to hear it.
The organizations have tried. Both Americans for Safe Access and NORML have done a couple of lawsuits that have tried to force the DEA to reschedule this because obviously there's scientific medical utility for cannabis. Obviously it can be used safely under doctor supervision. And what it always comes to is this weird legal roadblock where it's illegal because it's bad, and it's bad because it's illegal, and it's tied up in the way the way the law is written is it's really neatly written to defend itself, and it's hard to attack it, and they've really, really tried. So, yeah, I think it's just going to take us forcing them to change it.
Okay. Well, listen, thanks for taking my call. Great show, as always. Thanks for all the work both you guys and everybody behind the scenes do. And we'll just keep going ahead.
Yeah.
And I did not know it had been challenged, so thank you for enlightening me about that.
Yeah, a normal versus DEA. In fact, that was the one where in 1988, the DEA administrative law judge, Francis Young, said marijuana is the safest therapeutically active substance known to man. And the DEA still went against what his recommendation was.
Right, I know about that quote.
Yeah, that's where it
okay,
came from.
guys, I'll let you go and so you can get back to the show. And thanks again.
Thank you, man, and good luck with your case and everything that's going on.
Thank you. I'll mute it.
Yeah. All right, and maybe we can cheer you up if we could get you a chance to win a magazine. First, we have to give away this one. Our trivia question for this one was, what was the first state in the United States to prohibit marijuana, and in what year did they do so? And we had a few people who responded, and some of them responded with the right answer. Some did not. I had one person who responded that it was Utah in 1915. That is not true. It was not Utah in 1915.
Not that long ago.
I had another who responded it was California in 1913, and that is not true. We did have, let's see, 3 or 4 that got the right answer, which was the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. April 29th, 1911 was the first state for a statewide ban of marijuana, and our winner is Stella. Stella is our winner. So Stella, I'm going to email you back and get your mailing address so that we can mail that out to you, your winning copy of High Times. You'll also get a 420 Radio poster, Bill of Rights poster, some stickers, all sorts of cool swag. All right, for our next Fan Friday contest that we should have had last Friday, but we're going to do now, we have this High Times magazine, which is May 1975. It's got a gourmet coca taster's tour of Peru. It's got a centerfold of a Starship Enterprise joint.
Oh, I saw that. It's cool.
Yeah. And paraphernalia tycoons.
It says something about the year 2004 or something. It's like that would be the, you know.
And we've got it's not in the best shape. Some of the pages are kind of falling off of here, but it's still in readable shape. So our trivia question, we will announce it when we come back from break. Stay tuned for how you can win this May 1975 High Times magazine. Listening to Toker Talk Radio, I'm Radical Russ. We'll be right back.
Simply business. It's simply business to know why they won't let us grow. It's simply business.
We'll be right back after these messages from our 420 friendly sponsors. Support these advertisers because their ad money goes straight to the Russ Belville Show.
The law offices of Omar Figueroa would like to remind you to stand up for your rights. Please do not give up your precious liberties. There's nothing wrong with standing up for our constitutional rights, and in fact, it's the best way to honor the Constitution that recognizes our natural rights. Treat law enforcement with respect and respect the Constitution by standing up for your rights. If you are detained or arrested, stand up for your rights by repeating, "I respectfully invoke all of my legal and constitutional rights. I do not consent to any search and seizure. I want to remain silent, and I want to speak with my attorney, Omar Figueroa." Omar Figueroa has more than a decade of experience in federal and California courts and graduated from Yale University, Stanford Law School, and Trial Lawyers College. Please contact the law offices of Omar Figueroa at 415-489-0420 or 707-829-0215 or on the web at omarfigueroa.com.
All right, welcome back. Time for our trivia question here to win this May 1975 High Times magazine. All you've got to do is tell me in which state in the United States has the greatest amount of marijuana decriminalized? That is, in which state do you have the highest limit for which you only get a ticket for your marijuana use? Don't laugh, Larry. In which state? All you got to do is email russ@radicalruss.com, russ@radicalruss.com, with the correct answer. Which state has the highest limit for decriminalized marijuana? Can you carry the most marijuana in public and only get a ticket? All right, we're going to go now to a quick little break for another one of our sponsors, and then directly to my presentation at the Oregon Medical Marijuana Business Conference.
Cannabis Outreach Collective is an alternative health and wellness option located in Gladstone, Oregon, that serves patients in the Portland area and beyond. We are a full-service alternative health and wellness collective accommodating patients with natural, organic, holistic, and homeopathic remedies, nutritional guidance, advice, education, and medical cannabis, fully in accordance with Oregon OMMP law. You can find out more about Cannabis Outreach Collective on Facebook at COC503 or by emailing cannabisoutreachcollective503@gmail.com or by telephone at 503-853-1319. Check out our menu on Weed Maps and visit Cannabis Outreach Collective today.
Thanks, Alex, for having me out here. And before I get started, I've got some swag to pass out. So if you guys would just pass these around, back and forth across. Like I said, my name is Russ Belville. I'm the executive director of 420radio.org. I worked for 4 years for the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws when I started doing a podcast and a news program on the emerging marijuana legalization, medical marijuana decrim, all of these factors. And it's just grown and grown since then to the point where now I'm flying all over the country, covering these different events, interviewing the entrepreneurs, the doctors, the scientists, the activists. So if you want to know what's happening day by day, I'm on every day, every weekday, 3 p.m. Pacific time, live talk radio. We've got call-ins, we've got interviews, we do tons of stuff out there. And if that's not a good time for you, we replay at 6 p.m. and 9 p.m., 6 a.m. and 9 a.m. And you can pick it up on YouTube, Ustream, iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, Snail Mail? No, we're not on Snail Mail yet. All right, so I'm here to talk to you about the green rush, and I've got 3 things basically to cover. Some of this will be a little redundant with what Troy had to say, but maybe from a different perspective. I come at this from the perspective of a cannabis consumer, not a business person, not a seller. I'm a user of cannabis since 1990. So my perspective is, what does this green rush mean to the consumers, and how can you, as investors and business people, best make the best of this market opportunity without insulting or denigrating the people you're about to sell to? Sometimes I find people that have no clue about marijuana or its users come in with stereotypes and thoughts about what cannabis consumers are like and what we would appreciate. And there's some things we appreciate and some things we don't, and I hope I give you a little perspective on that today. So what we'll talk about is a comparison, first of all, of the active dispensary systems in the other medical marijuana states. Just to give you an idea what a good deal you got going here in Oregon. It's really amazing. We'll also take a look at the developing recreational industry that's bound to make its way to Oregon and is already flourishing in Colorado and about to flourish in Washington State. And then at the end, we're going to take a look at various talking points and rhetoric to help promote the legalization of marijuana. Because medical marijuana, as far as I'm concerned, is just an intermediate step in the cannabis market. And you, as investors and business people, might end up on a TV interview or a radio show or in a newspaper column with opponents presenting some of these stereotypes and scares about legalization. And the better you can shoot that down, the better you look to the customers out there that might be a little on the fence about the whole marijuana situation. So we'll start with a look at the active state dispensary systems. And like I say, Oregon, I believe, provides the best opportunity of any of them to get involved with the business, especially at the ground level. So what is the green rush? Well, Troy kind of already talked a bit about this. Mark Twain once said that, you know, when there's a gold rush, it's a good time to be in the pick and shovel business.
or in the news that covers picking shovels, I guess. So part of the green rush is the introduction of medical marijuana into states that don't already have it. A few states that are on deck right now include New York, Tennessee, Alabama, Florida just made the ballot. That's going to be a huge marker once Florida hits. We also have the expansion of medical marijuana access in the states that already have it. Oregon's a perfect example of this. We just recently added post-traumatic stress to our qualifying conditions. By doing so, you increase the possible customer base because now more people can qualify for medical marijuana. We also want to talk about the development of recreational markets because, again, medical is just a sliver of the people that are using cannabis. And you develop those recreational markets, it's just going to be a bigger pie for everyone. And finally, the resurrection of the American hemp crop, which in Oregon may not be as beneficial as a place like Nebraska or Kansas, where it might grow better. But still, a significant amount of money could be made and a significant investment could be made in the American hemp crop here in Oregon, especially when you consider the timber industry in this state, which has suffered quite a bit. Some of the mills and the skills that people have in the timber industry might switch over pretty well to a hemp industry. Some of those things could be repurposed and we could get some of these people back to work in our smaller Oregon towns. Oregon is the fertile ground, like I said, for the marijuana gold rush at this point. We have a lot of advantages that some of the other medical marijuana states just do not have. First advantage we have, our program is pretty well established. It's not going anywhere. Not like Montana, where it kind of went out of control, the legislature freaked out and shut it back down, killed their dispensaries, really reduced the access to the program. In Oregon, we've got legislators standing up for us. In Oregon, we've got people that in the legislature who are pretty well educated after years of me and Lee Berger and Madeline and a bunch of people pestering them with the facts about marijuana. In fact, just, was it last week or the week before, Kevin Sabet from Project SAM. Does anybody know who Kevin Sabet is? Kevin Sabet is the quarterback of the anti-legalization movement. When the talking heads, when the news programs need a talking head to say no to legalization, he's the guy they get. Used to be a advisor to the drug czar, 2009 through 2011, and lately he's been flying around the country trying to convince legislators and voters not to legalize marijuana. He came to Oregon and spoke in front of our legislature, and you could just see them not believing a thing he had to say. It was amazing. Senator Floyd Przansky actually caught him because throughout his entire presentation he said, well, you know, we don't really have a problem if you're 50 years old and you want to smoke a joint in your house or something. That's not the issue. We're worried about big marijuana. We're worried about the big industries. And Floyd Przansky came back and said, so it seems you don't have a problem with adults using marijuana. They just have to get it from the black market? And Kevin Sabet said yes. He said, I quote, and I quote, the cons of legalization are worse than the cons of prohibition, and one of the cons of prohibition is you have to get it from a black market.
That's the con speaking.
I'm telling you that the con of prohibition is Kevin Sabet. All right, so we've got a well-established medical marijuana program, and people like Floyd Przansky are going to stand up for it. They're not going to take any shenanigans from these people, so we're in a good state politically. We're also, like I mentioned earlier, we recently expanded our program to include post-traumatic stress, which is a huge benefit here. And I've got some estimates that we'll show in just a second about how much that could increase the patient population here in the state of Oregon. We already have an existing retail system. Kinda. It's kind of a wink and nudge system. It's kind of a, we're going to be caregivers and give you medicine and you're just going to reimburse us for expenses, right? There's a lot of wink and nudge going on right now. But it does at least provide an already existing base to work with as far as getting the product out to the people and having the cannabis consumers in Oregon, at least around Portland area, I know for sure, pretty used to the idea of going to a cannabis store. And also kind of used to the idea that if it costs a little more, that's okay, because I got more selection, it's probably tested, I got more reliability. So that, I think, bodes well for Oregon, is that we're not building a retail system from scratch. We have something to work with. We also are pretty likely to pass legalization in 2014. We've got New Approach Oregon work. That's right, yeah. I cover this this legalization battle all across the country. I'm doing the news in all the states, and Oregon is the only state I can think of where the conservative newspaper editorial board is demanding for the legislature to pass legalization. And we're in an interesting situation because last election cycle in 2012 we tried to pass legalization, but it was this wide open, have as much weed as you like, grow as many plants as you like, very wide open legalization. And it got 47% with no funding, no campaigning whatsoever. So the legislature and the political observers are pretty aware that, boy, if someone puts something together that's even partially regulated, Oregon's going to jump at it. So the legislature's in a situation now where if they don't get involved with legalization, we'll pass the legalization we want, and it'll probably be more than what they want. So we've got an interesting kind of battle, this leverage that we have in Oregon that we don't have in a lot of these other states. To me, it's pretty amazing, and we'll compare some of those legalization figures, the different plans, in another slide. But it's pretty amazing to me that we've got a legislature that is willing to back and go to bat for the idea of 8 ounces of possession. Washington and Colorado, 1 ounce. Oregon, 8 ounces. I think that bodes pretty well for our tourism. Plus, I don't know if you've been to the beach in Washington, but the Oregon coast kicks it. And of course, the hemp. Hemp is already legal here in the state of Oregon, but it's kind of held up because, like a lot of the other hemp laws, it requires that the feds give you a permit. Like the feds are going to do that. But there is an effort underway right now in the legislature to pass a bill to amend that would say, screw the feds, go ahead, plant hemp. So we'll see how that turns out. All right, so here's my comparison of the active systems in the United States for dispensaries. And here are your states along the line here: Arizona, California, Colorado, Connecticut, D.C., Delaware, Illinois, Maine, Massachusetts, Nevada, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New Mexico, Rhode Island, Vermont, Washington, and us, Oregon. Now, getting in the game. If you want to get in the game, you want to buy yourself a license. There's usually 2 kinds of licenses involved: a retail license, I want to open a dispensary, and a producer license, I want to grow weed. Some states allow you to do both. Be a place that grows your own weed and sells it. Some places, it's an independent thing. Arizona requires that you have $150,000 in reserve assets before you can even apply. You got to show them you've got 150 grand in the bank or asset-wise before you can even apply. And they're limited in Arizona to 126 dispensaries. The law is actually 1 dispensary for every 10 pharmacies. So they're only going to be 126, and a lot of them are already taken. California, well, California's kind of a hodgepodge. It's local, and dispensaries technically aren't legal. Collectives kind of are, and there's a lot of gray area. But there's large portions of California that are completely banned. They allow bans in their certain counties, certain cities. So there are some places in California where you got to drive 3 hours just to get a place to buy some cannabis. So kind of a weird market there to try to get involved in. Colorado bases its dispensaries on a tiered system, 3 levels of dispensary, depending on how many patients you're planning to serve. The levels costs are $11,250, $21,250, or $32,000 a year if you want to get involved. Now, there's an unlimited number of dispensaries there can be, but they can be banned. So there's a situation there where there's Colorado Springs, the 2nd largest city in Colorado, no recreational pot shops, they can have bans on these things. And you got a patient population of 110,000 people. Not a bad market if you can get into it, but it's pretty saturated at this point. Connecticut, you got to have $2 million in escrow before you can even apply. Once you apply, you can get, it's a $1,000 non-refundable fee and a $25,000 license for retail, $25,000 non-refundable fee, and $75,000 license for producer. So you can turn in 25 grand and not even get anything out of it. In fact, they just, they're going to have 3 to 5 dispensaries for the whole state to serve 1,600 patients. District of Columbia, 15,000 retail, 10,000 producer. They're going to have 6 dispensaries and 3 grow sites. No, it's 3 dispensaries and 6 grow sites, I think. And again, at this point, they have 9 patients. Now, that's probably going to grow, but it's a pretty new program.
That's the problem. They're not smoking enough weed these days.
That's right. In Delaware, it's $5,000 fee plus $5,000 annual license, or $10,000 depending on the size of the place. One dispensary license has been granted so far. They may have up to 4. And they don't have many patients yet because they just barely started. Illinois, the rules still haven't been set yet, but they're only going to have 60 dispensaries and 22 grow sites. Maine has 8 dispensaries. They're already all taken for 1,455 patients. Again, $15,000 to apply, $15,000 a year to run it. Massachusetts, $500,000 in reserve, $1,500 fee plus $80,000 license, 35 total dispensaries. Nevada, $250,000 in reserve, $5,000 fee, $30,000 license, 66 dispensaries total. And the way they're limited in Nevada, there will be 10 in the county where Las Vegas is, 2 in the county where, 5 in the county where Reno is, 2 in the county where Carson City is, and every other county can only have 1 dispensary. But Nevada's pretty sparse. I mean, 1 dispensary for Winnemucca will probably do it. Anybody been to Winnemucca, Nevada? New Hampshire, they haven't set the fees yet, but there will only be 4 dispensaries in New Hampshire. New Jersey, $20,000 fee, $20,000 annual, 6 dispensaries. It's actually 4 dispensaries, 2 grow centers, and I think only 3 of the licenses have been given out yet. And if you're not a friend of Governor Christie, forget about it. New Mexico, $1,000 fee, up to $30,000. It's $20,000 renewal if your dispensary is 1 year or 2 years old. If it's 3 years or older, it's $30,000 to renew. New Mexico has 23 of them, and they're not taking any more applications at this point. Roughly 10,000 patients. And other aside, New Mexico is the only other state with an active program right now that specifically mentions PTSD. Connecticut and Delaware also do, but they haven't really gotten going yet. Rhode Island, $250, pretty nice to apply, but then your fee is $5,000 every 2 years. That's great, but there's only 3 dispensaries and they're already all taken for your 4,800 patients. Vermont, $2,500 with $20,000 to $30,000 to get in. 2 dispensaries statewide, 559 patients. Washington doesn't really have dispensaries. They have another wink-nudge system that's going on, but they may have I-502 stores. That will be $250 to get in and $1,000 a year, so that would be a pretty good situation. But they have a limit, 334 total I-502 stores, something like 60 in the Seattle area, 21 in the Seattle area, and the rest in other counties. Are they?
Now it's a $3,500 non-refundable lottery because too many people apply.
Oh, wow, yeah, exactly. So there you go, it keeps changing. Only in Oregon do we have this situation where it's $500 for a license, $3,500 annual. Are unlimited as far as I can tell, as far as how many dispensaries they can be, aside from they got to be 1,000 feet from the school, 1,000 feet from each other. But I guess technically you could put them everywhere that exists. And I don't see any ban possibility, although there has been some question of Medford and some of these other cities wanting to ban it. And didn't the Attorney General make an opinion? Yeah. Yeah, and we'll talk about that a little bit. Lee will have that tomorrow morning. So, and again, right now we have 60,516 patients in Oregon. So let's take a look at those. Oh yeah, question. Yeah, hold on.
There's a important part of that. Was the current growers, producer license, what is that about?
That's another question we'll have to answer because I'm not sure exactly how this producer thing's working out, but I know they're going to talk about this more in depth tomorrow. So yeah, for the detailed Oregon stuff. Yes.
Is producer? I mean, would producer cover manufacturer also?
Like infused products and such. You know, I'm not exactly sure how the producer stuff's going to work out. We'll have to save that for the guys, the real Oregon experts on that part. Yeah.
And the 500, 3,500 again?
That's the 500 non-refundable fee, 3,500 annual registration.
They raised that to 4,500 from my understanding.
What's that?
45.
Oh, they've raised it now? No? All right. Well, we'll handle that tomorrow. They're going to go way into detail on the Oregon law, so we'll cover that tomorrow. But I want to take a look at the growth in the rate of patients that we have. These are your customers at this point, the people that can shop at these dispensaries and such. And when we look at the growth in patient rates, this is the number of patients from 2000 through 2013 in the dark green. And from 2000 to 2011, the average rate of growth every year was 44%. Now, it grew more in some years and less in other years, but when you average it all out, it was about a 44% growth rate. That growth rate slowed to 16% in 2012 and just 6% in 2013, largely because the Oregon legislature doubled the fee it takes to become a medical marijuana patient from $100 to $200. And for a lot of people, it was no longer worth it anymore. And for others, they're on disability or limited incomes, and it was tougher for them to be able to register. So, what will we be seeing in the future as far as the number of patients? Well, if we estimate, if it stays at a 6% growth, we should, by the end of the year, have 64,000. If it goes back to that 16% growth from the year before, we should have 70,000. But if it returns to its pre-2011 levels of 44%, we'd have over 87,000 patients. I believe we have a good chance for this rate to return back to a greater rate, because once dispensaries exist, that $200 card means something now. That's my ticket to Candyland. I'm going to buy that thing. That's worth it to me now. So I think we are going to see by the end of this year at least 80,000, maybe 90,000 patients as dispensaries come online and patients start to realize, oh, wait a minute, I can go to a dispensary now. And the other factor that's going to increase the number of patients we have is this addition of post-traumatic stress in our qualifying conditions. As I mentioned earlier, New Mexico is the only active program that's been around for a while that has post-traumatic stress listed as a condition. And in New Mexico, as many people register for PTSD as register for pain. Now, New Mexico is a little weird though, because they only register one condition, so you got to pick one or the other, right? So that's a little different. But I think if just 20%, if we had only 1 out of 5 people that are pain patients that would register for PTSD, if we had a 1 to 5 ratio, then we could have 6, 7, or even 8,000 PTSD patients registered, especially if we do our due diligence as activists and start getting out to the military communities and the rape survivor communities and other battered shelters and all these kind of things, and show them how PTSD can be treated with cannabis. And this brings me to our qualifying conditions here in the state of Oregon. And it's kind of a segue also to one of the things our opponents like to throw at us about medical marijuana. Well, you know, these people using so-called medical marijuana, 90% of them are just using it for pain. Like, that's a bad thing, right? But they like to try to paint this frame like, oh, they're just faking it. They're lying about a backache, they're lying about a headache, and they're getting medical marijuana. Here's the problem with their thought process. This is the conditions that Oregon currently lists for medical marijuana use. And of 60,516 patients, I should go back to that, of the 60,516 patients, 59,760 do register for pain. That's 98.6% of our patients registered for pain. But here's the catch. You can register for more than one thing. And that's the thing they always leave out on the Sunday talk shows, is that you can register for more than one thing. Do you suppose cancer causes a little bit of pain? Do you suppose multiple sclerosis causes a little bit of pain? Maybe epilepsy causes a little bit of pain. I worked it out. This is the number of pain patients from 0 to 59, 60,000. And these blocks represent how many spasm patients, how many nausea patients, cachexia, cancer, glaucoma, and AIDS. If all of these people are also registering for pain, then the most possible pain patients is just 28,000, or 46% of our patient registry. So as producers and as business people, don't get fooled by their rhetoric that it's all just about pain and start stocking your dispensaries with, all the high THC stuff for pain or whatever. Keep in mind that that's a lie. Only about half of the people are registered for pain only. The rest of them have spasticity and seizure conditions that could be well taken care of with CBD and higher CBD products. All right, so that's the look at the different dispensary industries and medical marijuana. But I want to talk a little bit about recreational, because that's me. I'm not a patient. I'm just a pothead. In fact, this hat is made of hemp, so I really am a pothead. So medical marijuana is just the beginning of this. The real green rush starts when we get recreational going, because that's when the tourism happens. That's when the recreation users get involved. So we will have impending legalization either in 2014 or 2016. I'm pretty darn sure of it. And all that means is a potential doubling, at least, of your market. Here's a look from the National Surveys on Drug Use and Health. The federal government puts out this survey every year where they get an anonymous pollster from the federal government to call people on the telephone and ask them their opinions and their activities on the breaking of state and federal laws. So take the stats with a grain of salt. Some people just might lie. No, I don't know. Smoke pot? No, not me. Right? Because it's an anonymous government pollster. But of the people who are willing to at least admit it, here are the facts. In Oregon, 13.4% of every adult 21 or older will smoke pot this year. That's 355,000 pot smokers, cannabis consumers, marijuana aficionados here in the state of Oregon. 8.8% smoke monthly, 235,000. 4.3% weekly tokers, 114,000 of us. And 1.9% of Oregon's adult population, including me, uses cannabis almost every day. This is 21 days a month or more in the government survey. Another way to think of this, 1 out of 8 adults smokes pot annually, 1 out of 12 adults smokes pot monthly, 1 out of 24 adults smokes pot weekly, 1 out of 50 adults smokes pot every day in the state of Oregon. And of those annual purchasers, the 355 annual consumers, 355,000 of them, 123,000 of them, about 1/3 of them, purchased cannabis. You know, the other 2/3, they're just in the circle. They're just receiving the cannabis, right? 1/3 of the people actually bought it. So you're looking at a market, right, if we get recreational passed, of at least 123,000 recreational purchasers. And of those purchasers, 3 out of 4 of them purchased about 1/8. Another 20% of them about purchased about 1/4. And then it's only about 5% of the consumers that purchase in amounts greater, a half ounce or greater. Those purchasers tend to be older. Younger people tend to buy smaller quantities. Older people tend to stock up in larger quantities. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about your marketing. And who here knows what the 80-20 rule is? You ever heard the 80-20 rule, that 80% of X is responsible, or 20% of X is responsible for 80% of Y? It applies in marijuana as well. The near daily consumers, that 2% of the market, 80% of the use. The 2% of marijuana smokers who smoke nearly daily make up 80% of the consumption and purchase of marijuana in this country. So I'm the guy you want to be marketing to. Now, as far as growth in the market by age demographics, the bars that we have here in red show you how many cannabis consumers on a monthly basis there were at age group 21 to 25, 26 to 34, 35 to 49, and 50 and above. The red bars are 2003, the green bars are 2011. In every age demographic, the total number of marijuana smokers has gone up in Oregon. It's gone up most dramatically in age group 26 to 34. This is an important stat to know when the opponents come out and say, oh, if we legalize, more kids will use it. No. Kids who want to smoke pot are already smoking pot. They're the ones who can actually find it. Adults, on the other hand, who are wary about losing their job or their families to go out in the street corner and find some weed, those are the people that once you legalize, want to be able to purchase it in a safe environment. And I believe that that 26 to 34 and 35 to 49 going up so much has somewhat to do with Oregon's development of this wink and nudge dispensary industry. The adults now have someplace to go. But if we look at the statistics as a share, the share of 21 to 25-year-olds, you see this red pie chart up here? If I can get my mouse to work. This red pie chart up here, the share of 21 to 25-year-olds used to be 21%, and it's still 21%. Younger people aren't smoking pot anymore in the state of Oregon. Now, it's gone up because there's been an increase in population. But the percentage, the 21%, is still the same. The big growth, again, 26 to 34 used to make up 20% of the market. Now it makes up 29% of the market. So, the frequent cannabis consumer who's aged 26 to 34, there's your target demographic if you're really looking to get the big spenders and the frequent flyer miles. The right term, frequent flyer? I guess it is. It's a pun, isn't it? Here's another look at the demographics of marijuana smokers. Now, this is nationally. This isn't just Oregon. But nationally speaking, this is a look at every cannabis consumer from age 12 to age 65. Now, I've shaded everyone under 21 in gray because I don't care about them. I don't want to legalize marijuana for people under the age of 21. I don't want to be sold to the people under the age of 21, so we're not going to consider that. But it is good to know almost 30% of your monthly and annual cannabis consumers are under the age of 21. The dark bars on the bottom edge here represent monthly consumption, gray, lighter bars, annual consumption. This tells us about a third of people 18 and 19 years old use cannabis every year. 1 out of 3 college-age people. And about 1 out of 5, 20% of those teens, late teens, use cannabis every month. This is a problem because there's only 2 things our opponents have to scare the bejesus out of the people from vote against legalization, and I call them WOTC and SMUF. WOTC. What about the children? Oh, what about the children? And SMUF, stoned mayhem on the freeways. Oh, there'll be wrecks on the freeway. So I use this one to defeat WOTC. Because WOTC, what about the children? Oh my God, look at all these children. They're smoking pot. Oh my God, oh my God. Well, check this out. The median age of a cannabis consumer is 26. Median is a mathematical term that means everybody behind this line, there's half of them, and everybody ahead of this line is the other half. So the median age is 26. More than half of cannabis consumers are at least 26 and older. The average age is 29, which that tells us, again, that more cannabis use is kind of sliding over here toward the older set. And here's my favorite number. Kevin Sabet likes to go around saying, you know, the average medical marijuana user in the state of California is a 32-year-old white male with a criminal history. I don't know what the white part has to do with it. I don't know that matters, really. But he always harps on this. The average cannabis medical marijuana person in California is a 32-year-old male. Well, if the median is 26 and the average is 29, but the medical average is 32, doesn't that mean medical is moving the demographic toward older people? And California being so wide open like it is, it's kind of legalization in a sense. Wouldn't that mean Oregon's legalization would push the median and the average more toward the older user? That's what I think this data shows us. And again, kids who want to smoke pot already are. It's the adults who don't have access. They don't have the friend who deals in the locker room or behind the shop class. They don't have the ability to go to the park and get some weed from some guy on the corner and not worried they're going to lose their job or their kids or their possessions. So I believe legalization is going to push the average and median ages of cannabis consumers more toward 30 and away from teenagers. Now, let's take a comparison of legalization that's being offered. We have 2 states that have already legalized. Colorado under Amendment 64, Washington under I-502. Currently, there are 2 proposals in Oregon known as OCTA, the Oregon Cannabis Tax Act, or I-22, Initiative 22, and Oregon's New Approach Oregon, which is I-37, I think is the number. I think that's right. And there's some differences between these, and I believe Oregon is going to give us far better legalization than Washington and Colorado have. For one, possession in Colorado is 1 ounce in public, but you can possess all of your harvest at home. Officer, this 200 pounds, why, that's all my harvest that I've had since the law started. In Washington, you can have 1 ounce of herbs, 16 ounces of edibles, or 72 ounces of liquid. OCTA is proposing 24-ounce possession, 1.5 pounds, just like medical patients, which I think makes sense. How does marijuana get more dangerous when I'm healthy? Right? Why shouldn't I have 24 if a patient has 24? But that does present some political obstacles, so New Approach is going to go with 1 ounce possession in public, 8 ounces at home, 16 ounces of edibles, 72 ounces of liquid. So no matter which one passes, it's far better than what you got in Colorado and Washington. Cultivation's a bit of a sticking point, though. In Colorado, you get to cultivate 3 mature plants and 3 seedlings, but in Washington, no home grow, not allowed. OCTA's going to let you have 24 plants. New Approach Oregon's going to go with 4 plants per residence. A lot of people got a problem with that because, you know, I got a roommate. Now we can only have 2 plants each, and what? One has to be a seedling, and then the next one's veg. I mean, 4 plants isn't a whole lot to work with. But it's a lot better than none. Licensing. In Colorado, they're 70% vertically integrated. If you're a shop, if you're a dispensary, you have to produce 70% of your own medicine. Well, this is kind of a barrier to getting in the business because that's a whole lot more startup fees and insurance and cameras and security and all that. In Washington, you can be a producer, a processor, or a retailer, or you can be both a producer and a processor, but you can't be all three. You can't be completely vertically integrated. Okta is proposing a producer and or processor and or retailer. You can be one, you can be two, you can be all three. Most flexibility of all. And New Approach actually adds a fourth level. Producer, processor, wholesaler, retailer. Someone who's allowed to broker cannabis. As far as the fees go, a shop in Colorado, they're only limiting them now to the shops that are currently dispensaries. And so the fees for dispensaries apply, and that works out to $250 for your recreational license, and then the $3,750, $8,750, or $14,000 based on the tier that your particular dispensary's at. Under I-502, it's pretty nice. $250 and a $1,000 license, but again, they're going through that lottery thing, right? Because who knows if you're going to get in. And I always hate those lottery things too. I want the best businesses, not the luckiest. Anyway, Okta I think is to be determined right now as far as fees go. I'm not sure on that. And I think New Approach Oregon's is $1,000 if I read it correctly.
And those encounter include local business licenses?
No. This is just at the state level. There might be a business license fee, municipal thing. Yeah. As far as the taxation goes, I believe Oregon's going to be in a much better situation than Washington and Colorado. Washington and Colorado are taxing 10% sales, 15% excise, plus the local tax, which averages around 8%. Washington's got 25% at 3 separate levels, plus the local tax, which again averages 8 or 9%. Okta's, I don't think, limit has a particular tax, but it directs the legislature to come up with something. I like New Approach Oregon on this one. $35 an ounce, flat. That's it. $35 an ounce for your tax, $10 an ounce for leaves, trim, and $5 a seedling tax. Paid by, yeah. The DUID, this has been a piece of contention with legalization politics. Washington State decided to go with a 5 nanogram per se DUID, which means if the cop pulls you over, feels that you're impaired, arrests you, takes you in for the blood test, and it's over 5, you're guilty. You may be the best driver in history. You might be Danica Patrick and Jimmy Johnson all rolled up into one. You're a DUI, regardless. Colorado didn't, and its activists fought that. They said, we're not going to put in a limit. We're not going to do it. And they still lost because after 6 or 7 attempts, the legislature finally got a 5 nanogram law passed. Although it's a rebuttable presumption, it's like a permissible inference. It's like, okay, if you got 5, you're probably too high to drive, but you can fight it in court. That's still really tough, especially for chronic consumers like myself. I wake up over 5, guaranteed. So that's really a problem for me. Okta and New Approach Oregon would keep the current law. The current law in Oregon is you can't drive high. If a cop thinks you're driving high, he takes you out of the car, does the walk the straight line, follow my finger test, and he thinks you're impaired, he busts you for a DUI. Like it should be. This is the thing that frustrates me about legalization is these people seem to think that legalization invents marijuana. Marijuana's already here. If people are driving stoned, they're doing it now. It's already existing. How in the hell are we busting stone drivers now? Well, whatever we're doing now, let's keep doing that. We don't need to come up with some unscientific, inaccurate measure. Local bans. Amendment 64 in Colorado allows them to ban pot shops. Colorado Springs already has. A few of the other, I think it's 8 of the top 10 population cities in Colorado have banned pot shops. Only Denver and Boulder in the top 10 are allowing. In Washington, it's in question right now. In fact, the Yakima tribe wants to ban it on all their tribal lands. It's really interesting what's going on there. It's not mentioned in Okta whether bans would be allowed. In New Approach Oregon, it specifically does allow a locality to ban these places. Oregon's also got some law going on right now as far as whether they can ban the dispensaries, and the Attorney General had an opinion on that said they probably can't, or Legislative Council was it? That said they probably can't. It still has to be worked out. Hash oil. You cannot make hash oil at home in Colorado. It's explicitly banned. Thank you. They don't need anyone blowing up the house next to me. And you can have an ounce of hash oil. In Washington, it's unclear whether hash oil is legal, but you can have infused products. And so some people are saying, so like if I take a gallon of butane hash oil and I put a drop of olive oil in it, isn't that infused olive oil? And they may be able to get away with that, which would be perfect, par for the course for Washington with their whole wink and nudge thing anyway. Octa is unmentioned, doesn't really mention hash oil as far as I can tell. New Approach does institute a homemade ban. You can't produce hash oil at home, and allows you to have an ounce of it. Colorado and Washington ban public use. Octa is, and so does New Approach. Octa is the only one that says in a public place where signs allow it, and they're roped off and protected, like a beer garden would be, then they can have public smoke. And finally, stores. Colorado's got 160, they have 500 dispensaries or more. 160 of them have converted to pot shops so far. Washington limits you to a total of 334. Octa and New Approach don't seem to have limits as far as I can tell. So, like I mentioned earlier, we've got a special political situation in Oregon where New Approach Oregon's working with the legislature with the kind of leverage of, if you don't work with us, we're going to pass something even bigger and better. And the only fear I have about this, of having multiple initiatives working at the same time, is the possible confusion of voters not knowing which one they've signed and perhaps signing one twice. And that invalidates not just their signature, but the whole signature sheet. So that might be problematic. I also worry about dividing the resources of money and attention and time and media coverage. If I were to advise the business community to talk to the activist community, I would tell you guys with the money to tell the activists to get behind one thing. Work on one thing, and let's get that passed. All right, real quick to wind up, I got like 5 minutes here. I got a few quick legalization sound bites to throw at you in case you end up on a news show or talking to a reporter. One thing they like to say is, oh my God, we legalize, it'll be another big tobacco. It'll be another big tobacco, they'll have Joe Camel, they'll lie to our kids, they'll say it's safe. Well folks, when's the last time you saw Joe Camel? Nobody under the age of 16 has ever seen Joe Camel. It went away in 1998. The doctors saying that camels are the smoke to smoke haven't been around since the 60s. Why would we forget all the lessons of big tobacco and not apply them to big marijuana? Why wouldn't we start with advertising bans on cartoon characters and things that might apply to children? And as far as I'm concerned, there already is a big marijuana. It goes by the name of Sinaloa, Juarez, and Gulf cartels. And I'm far less afraid of you, big marijuana, than I am the big marijuana that cuts people's heads off. Always bring it back to that. There already exists a big marijuana. We want to be the big marijuana that pays taxes and creates jobs. Oh, I gotta get this one, the Sabat conjecture. This is the one, did I get that? Yeah, okay, the Sabat conjecture. This is the one where Kevin Sabat will come out and say, this promise of taxing marijuana is a red herring because alcohol and tobacco only bring in $40 billion in taxes, but they cost $400 billion in social costs. So if we tax marijuana, it wouldn't be worth it. And I always say, well, this kind of ignores 3 points. Number one, alcohol and tobacco are toxic and addictive. That's what causes the social harm. Number two, marijuana already exists, so if there's costs from it, we're paying them now. And we're taking in zero taxes, and we're spending $15 billion a year to try to stop it, and not succeeding. In fact, here's a study you could use to back this up. This was from the Center for Addiction Studies in University of British Columbia. The brown bars, dark brown, is the healthcare costs. The light brown is how much it costs to enforce that. They found that the average tobacco smoker in Canada per year cost Canada $828 a year, $822. They found the average alcohol drinker cost Canada $165 a year. They found the average pot smoker cost $20 a year. Who here thinks we can get $20 in taxes off a pot smoker in a year? Hell, I got $20 in my pocket. I'll pay my tax now. So don't let them give you that cost fear because it's just, already told. It makes no sense. There's another talking point. If we make it legal, more people will use it. It'll become more popular. Again, like that's a bad thing. Because it doesn't matter whether use goes up, it matters whether harm goes up. And I would propose that if more people are switching out their alcohol and prescription pills for marijuana, harm's going to go down. Oh, and also on that, they say, one of their backups is they'll say, well, 53% of the people drink and 27% of the people smoke, and only 8% of the people smoke pot. So see, more people do stuff if it's legal, and less people do it if it's illegal. Then why do more people smoke pot than use cocaine, which is Schedule 2? Cocaine is less illegal than marijuana, but more people use marijuana. And why is it that drinking in my lifetime has gone down from 60 to 53%, smoking's gone down from 37 to 27%, and we didn't arrest a single adult drinker or smoker to pull that off?
Right.
Making pot legal means we're endorsing its use. How many people smoke cigarettes? How many people think the government endorses your use? Yeah, right. You got to go outside, 50 feet away from the door. You got to hide under the blankets. You can only do it on odd Tuesdays. Making it legal doesn't endorse its use. It endorses responsible use. They'll often say 1 out of 6 kids get addicted. Oh, if we legalize marijuana, it'll be bad for the kids because 1 in 6 kids get addicted. We're not legalizing it for kids. In fact, if 1 in 6 kids get addicted, wouldn't it be a better idea to check them for ID and make them go into an adults-only store than to let them pick it up from their dealer at school? There are 1 million teenage drug dealers in America, and 44% of all students know one of these teenage drug dealers, and 91% of the time that dealer's got marijuana. 6% of the time he's got cigarettes, 1% of the time he's got alcohol. Because there's no money in being a tequila dealer. Oh, Smoth, stoned mayhem on the freeway. Fear the stoned drivers. And I'll often point out this British Medical Journal study that said there's a double crash risk, 1.95 to 1. Almost 2 to 1 crash risk for someone who smoked within 3 hours. But that same study says a drinker at 0.08 is almost 2.5 times, or more than 2.5 times likely to cause a wreck. And the study didn't control for the fact that pot smokers also tend to be young teenage males who are the worst drivers on the planet. Here's the study I like to look at. This is from Dr. Groha Lee. It was in the Journal of Accident Analysis and Prevention in 2013. It calculated the odds risks of a sober driver versus other drivers. Marijuana came out again almost 2 to 1, but Oxy, Vicodin, and Percocet came out 3 to 1. Adderall, Ritalin, and Phentermine came out 3.5 to 1. Valium, Klonopin, and Ativan came out 4.83 to 1. And I have yet to hear any legislature propose a per se limit for any of those drugs. Alcohol drivers, 13.64 to 1. Alcohol plus any of those, 23.24 to 1. So I'm not saying that stoned drivers aren't something to worry about, but compared to the rest of them, they're the last thing I'm worried about.
Russ, we're almost out of time.
Almost out of time.
You
All
want
right.
to take a question or two? I know, this is fantastic.
We
don't have time for questions. This is all going to be on the final.
Oh, here's our fatality rates per 100 million miles. Again, it's not whether things go up, it's whether harm goes up. And in Colorado, Washington, and Oregon, all of them have fewer fatalities per 100 million miles at a lower rate than the United States average. So if marijuana liberalization, like in Colorado, Washington, and Oregon, is causing more people to wreck and die, we're not seeing it in the statistics. I have a few more slides. I don't have enough time to get to them, but those things that I handed out to you at the beginning, if you go to 420radio.org/shop, this presentation is available for download, on sale for the rest of the week for the amazing low price, $2.99. Not only do you get all these slides, full script on every slide.
Very nice.
Thanks for your time. I'm Radical Russ.
Give it up one more time. Radical Russ, Belleville, everybody.
So there's my presentation at the Oregon Medical Marijuana Business Conference just this last Thursday, and added in the slides for you. And again, the presentation is available at our 420 radio shop. Just go online, look in the top right corner in our control panel. You'll see the shop button. Then look under downloads. It's in the downloads section. Hey, that's all the time I got here for hour 2, but thanks for being here. Join us tomorrow for another episode of The Russ Belville Show and Toker Talk Radio. Coming up next, you've got a new episode of Stony Sunday with Coral Reefer, her Super Bowl Sunday edition, Then you'll get the replays of these last 2 hours at 6 and 7. And at 8 o'clock, join me live for another edition of the new Viper Hour, the best in reefer jazz from the early 20th century. For Brian the Red, I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for joining us. And until next time, take care.